Okay guys, so today we'll be looking at how do you do this layering kind of effect on your gunpla. Okay, so as you can see, what have I done over here is that I cut off a lot of parts. I mean a lot of Plaplate to paste on the part, so it looks like it's more 3D. It does look more realistic. There's a plane instead of just like this, a plain slab of plastic, right? So it doesn't look realistic. So what I've done is basically I've measured up the whole entire kit, and I've actually did some kind of the designing on my computer, and I printed out on a slightly thicker piece of paper like this. Okay, so what I do is actually I just take this and line it up, make sure that the size is correct. So from here actually I actually think that I want to make this part align with this part, so I'll just put it up slightly. Okay, so you know that basically here you have a lot of space, so maybe you want to do something about it, or you can just leave it this way to have like one more line over here. So it depends on you. Alright, so this is basically, you can use it as a template. So what I'm going to do next is basically get a piece of Plaplate. Okay, measure it up. So as for me, I just put it at the edge. Which way is better? Yeah. So for example, this way, all I need to do is just chop it down. What I recommend you guys do is actually get a cutting mat like this, so that you can have this grid design, so that you can make sure that your cutting is very precise. Alright, so let me just cut around here. So what I normally suggest is that you use the hobby knife and just go a few times. Don't go too hard, as you can see it might just go off. So you just slowly go a few times, and slowly will do. Alright, so what have I done is actually I cut off for this part, and this one you can actually flip it up here, around here, right? So I just estimate it slightly above this part, this height, and then just cut it off. This part actually you don't have to be so precise, because you are just cutting off from the Plaplate. Right, so what you should do is actually just fold it like this in and out until it breaks. But if you don't want one, usually what I do is actually I use this normal blade like this, and then once you already cut off the line, there is a groove, so just put this blade into the groove and just follow it. Then it's done, right? Or you can do the back and forth method, which I showed you just now. It's like this, like this, like this, and then you can tear it off. But normally I don't do that, is because it might stress the plastic slightly. So I basically just use the old-fashioned method, which is just cutting it off. Alright, so you have your plastic piece over here. If you can't fit to, I actually have some spare over here, so I don't think it's much of an issue. Okay, so what I should do now is, sorry, I'm a bit blurred now, but yep. Okay, so what I do is actually I align one of the parts to the plastic, so that I save my trouble of cutting one of the part. Get a pencil. Alright, I strongly recommend using pencil because it's easily to rub off, and it's easy to use on the it actually stays on the plastic pretty well. So it's better to use pencil than, I think, pen or markers. That's just my opinion, but it's up to you guys. Okay, so once you have this, you can cut it out. Cutting this out, you can actually basically just use the blade, like what you see just now, or you can actually use the scissors. Alright, but as for me, I'm going to just flip this upside down and do another one. Why actually is good for you guys to use a template like this? It's basically because that you can actually do two. Alright, so let I screw myself up or something. Let me check. Try. Can I just fit? Yeah, I can fit two. Alright, so basically I can fit two. I just align it back to just now, the same thing, and trace it up again. Why I recommend using a harder paper is so that it's easier to use it like a ruler to trace out the lines. You can actually use A4 paper. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's going to be harder for you guys to draw because the paper might get folded once you put the pencil to it. So basically, I'm very lazy, so I like to use a shortcut method, which is using these scissors. Try your best to go as straight as possible. Okay, just chop it up like this. This part goes to the spare bin, and then just chop this thing up. Alright, so there is actually one issue by if you guys are using scissors like this. Is example, if I were to cut this way here, I can't turn this way and cut here because this is a plastic. If I were to do that, I might stress the plastic over here and might affect the other parts over here. So what you should do is cut this way. Always cut away from you. Do not spin it around or anything. So as you can see, but basically I would suggest you guys just do straight lines. Do not do curves unless it is curved upwards and the part is actually not really important. As for mine, two parts are actually sharing one piece, so it's better to be careful. Okay, so if the whole piece you're gonna just throw it away just to cut off a small part, then it's fine. You guys can curve how much you want. But if you guys are doing curves, I would suggest you guys use the hobby knife method. It's actually the best. Alright, so but it takes more time. So as for me, this whole part I won't be using, so I could just chop it off like this. And as you can see, why actually I do two parts is because that this is a wing part, so I have to have two, make it symmetric. And by printing something like this is actually good because you can use it as a template to make sure both sides are the same. Okay, so basically I've done these two pieces. If you align them together, they should be very similar. Okay, so what you should do basically now is that look at the template that you made and decide where you want to cut off first from this. Okay, so as for me, usually what I do is actually I go for the bigger ones. So for this, I will actually just use my blade. Chop off this part first. Okay, and then this part I can actually use the scissors. Very careful, but of course you can adjust it when you're cutting the Plaplate. It's okay. So after you cut off this part, put it to the side and use this and try to align it back to the design of the part. As you can see, I got confused of this part is supposed to be, how does it look like. Okay, so as you can see, I've got this pretty much aligned like this. All you have to do is repeat the same step. Okay, get a pencil and draw the lines. I actually did a few methods. Basically, I tried to be the lazy method, which is I used I cut immediately, but I feel that this thing might move around when you cut because you have to do several times. So I would suggest that you guys just use it as a template and draw lines. It would be way easier. So with that, you guys have lines. Of course, my initial idea is actually I would want to use this to draw panel lines on the kit. But as for me, I think I just want to try something different, so I just make it into a Plaplate layering effect. And you guys can see how it looks like once it's done. Okay, so basically what I do is I just cut this up like this. Okay, and then this straight line here, get a
align it up properly and cut it up. It's always all you have to be remember to be careful and don't rush it. Okay. And for some reason, I actually suggest you guys use this kind of blade instead of a hobby knife, mainly because this is actually short. So having a shorter blade, I guess, it's actually more stable. You can use more force, and also it's easier to control. So I would highly suggest you guys do this. And then once it's done, you can just pull it off. Alright. So here, sometimes you have this kind of minor defect thing. You can just chop it off. Okay, you have your part number 1. Okay, as you guys can see, why actually I didn't use my scissors for this is mainly because the scissors will actually curve the plastic. Normally it's okay if you guys if you are cutting on a big part, but for small parts like this, it might curve in once you cut it. Okay, so that's actually what I'm trying to avoid. Right, so part 1 is complete. So I just arrange these two at the side and then continue on to the other parts. Okay, so what I can see, I always go for the easier one. Example, it's for this part here. All I need to do is just cut it off. My suggestion is actually work from outside in, so it's easier for you guys. So basically it's a repetitive kind of thing, but actually it does shows a very good result in the end. It's not really that hard. When first time, if you see people have like these crazy panel lines, too lot of plates and stuff, it does look intimidating, right? But once you actually get used to it, use template based like what I did, actually it's way easier. This method basically I didn't really learn from anywhere online, but it's actually something that I come up with myself. Alright, because as you guys know, I'm always very lazy, so I'm thinking of ways to make my life easier. Okay, so this is it. Okay, so from here you guys can see that it's getting pretty complicated. So I'll go through this first. As you can see, I actually did 2 small lines here. I mean small holes here, so you guys could actually carve the lines out. I'll just show you guys how I actually do it. Okay, so this part you guys do again the same method. Hope you guys learn this and you guys could actually make your own masterpiece in the future. Alright, I'm not really that pro, but I would say that I think it's acceptable. Mine is actually slightly harder, slower, because I'm doing symmetrical, 2 parts, the same parts. Alright, so you have to do 2 times. If you guys do 1 time, then it's easier. Alright, so it's one more thing that I should actually let you guys know is that it's always best to cut from inside out, so that you don't overcut your parts. Okay, as you guys can see, actually I screw up slightly on this part, but it's okay, no issue. But if you guys are doing 2 parts, it's good for you guys to separate your part. Example is for the left. Example, this is the left wing. Just put it in the left wing stash, and the right wing to right wing stash. Alright, so you don't mix them out. So for example, like this, I will cut off from here. Make sure I don't mix it up like this. Sometimes it won't align properly. As you can see, it's going to be a gap, right? So if this one were to go here, it's always perfectly fine. Okay, so always remember to separate your parts. Okay, so once I've done this, I need to cut off this small hole. So this small hole is actually pretty tricky. All you need to do is use some hobby knife, because it's sharper, it's easier to get into these smaller parts. So just all you need to do is just scratch it up. Okay, so what happened is basically I've done holes to this kit, to this template. Then all you need to do is align it with the part. Okay, for this you guys can just go in and do this, just color it out, make sure you get okay kind of thing. So you find that you have these two parts. So what I usually do is actually I use a chisel. Chisel is good for me because I can just go in here and then just snap it out. Go in here, snap it out. Okay. So move it slightly and snap it out again. So what actually have I done is basically I've punched out a hole quite similar to my template with what I've done. So of course with this you guys need to do a few cleanups. It won't be perfect. So this is actually what I do. You guys, if you want, you guys can just use a hobby knife to cut it out. Usually what I do is I just use the sharp knife part and just keep poking in to make the part. This is a very lengthy process, so if you guys do not want to do this kind of hole, so you guys could actually skip this step. Alright, so this is actually just depending on your own preference. Okay, so once I've done this, use the chisel and puncture it all the way in. So with that, you guys could have square holes, right? Then here it's going to be jagged, but it's fine. You guys can just use a sandpaper or something to just sand it down, smooth it down, right? So not much of an issue. So this, sand it down and done, smooth. So always remember always fold the part at the top. Puncture it from the top, don't from the bottom, right? So as for this part, I will have to flip it over and use it this way. That if I do this way, it won't be damaged. Okay, let's just do it again. This chisel is actually 0.5 millimeters, so it's actually pretty wide. Most Gunplas you don't really use such a big chisel. Normally you go like 0.3 for thicker lines and like 0.1 or 2, something like that, for the normal panel lines. So which is why I use this mostly to puncture holes and stuff, or make deeper lines and deeper cuts. And even though it's damaged, I can actually sharpen it, so it's fine with me. But if you guys are afraid to damage your chisel, then don't follow this method. Alright? Okay, so this one is done. All you need to do is just set it down. So as you can see, after I cut off, there is actually some parts like this. So what I do is just I just cut it off. Because once you put this thing all together, usually they will have some gaps, and you actually arrange it accordingly. So as you can see, it's actually getting almost done. It's pretty easy. Okay, so this part now I'm going to just do the other flap. Right, so be careful of this small part over here, right? So all I need to do is just chop it off carefully. Alright, as you can see for here, this part is too flimsy, right? So it will move around once you slide. So for this you have to just estimate. Okay, so for this it's actually pretty hard because this part is very slim. So you need to be very careful. Slow, very slow. Right? Once it's done, see? It will just come off easily. Right? So this part is considered. Okay, so the last part, as you can see, I can just remove this part, it's fine. It's very annoying. So all you need to do is just align this part, and you see whether do you want to have this notch over here. Alright, as for me, I'll just remove them. Okay, once I've done with the notch, all I need to do is just align it back. Alright, align it to the part that I want. Same thing again, draw the lines with the pencil. Okay, next what should I do is just chop off the part here. Normally what I do is just do the downward stroke first. And then take my chisel, I think I'll just change to the bigger ones. Is the size correct? Yeah, size is almost the same. So all I need to do is just align it up, chop it down. Align it up, chop it down. Align it up and chop it down. Right. So with that, the notch are done. These small pieces can be thrown or kept depending on you guys. For me, I just throw it away. That way you guys can get a 3D effect on your finished kit, because like there is like a outer armor and there's like some holes that reveals the inner part of it. So this is actually the type of design that I'm going for. You guys can do whatever you guys want. But as for me, because I'm a graphic designer, I know how to use the Illustrator app or the programs on my computer, so I can do this template base. Alright, okay, so once I've done with this, all you need to do is assemble it back. Alright, so get this part, put it back here, this part. So basically this part is like a jigsaw puzzle. You guys need to assemble everything back, what it will cut. Right, so I'm not really sure if I'm correct because I have nothing refer to, but I try to put the parts in a proper place when I cut it in. Alright, so basically, yeah, it's correct. Right, so I've done with one side, and this part is supposed to flip it. So you guys can see that it's actually not that hard and it's not that easy either. Just try not to get mixed up. Okay, so since this part is done, let me get the wings in here. Alright, so as you can see, this thing is supposed to go on here. As for me, there is like some bulge here, but I think it should be fine. So I will just need to put this part onto the wing here and glue it in. So for just now, before you guys see, before I put this in, I actually did arrange and I actually wanted it to be this way. It's going to be higher up, right? So I think I'm going to glue it upward slightly. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to find my glue. Where did I put my glue? Where did I put my glue? Yeah. So I'm going to use my super glue. Right? Make sure there's a line. Am I correct? Nope. Yeah, this way is correct. Okay, so make sure that I glue it this way up. Right? So all I need to do is just dab a little bit of glue. Okay, a small dip of glue there, a small dip of glue here. So what I'm going to do is try to align it to the part that I want. So for example, I'm going to align it to the outer part of the wings. So that's how I do it. Okay. Be very careful because the super glue dries up very fast. So you need to align it as properly as possible. Okay, and just let it dry. Right? You guys can actually start putting on other parts already. So as for this now, as you're waiting for that part to dry, you guys can actually start putting on other parts. So for example, this one here, can be placed here. So as you can see, the part back here is actually open because there's another Plaplate in here. Basically glue the part over here and then put another glue over here and push this part down. Right, so what I'm going to do is just that one small piece here, two small piece here, right, and then careful again, put it in here, make sure it aligns, and then push down the bottom. Right, so it should stay, the top should stay, the bottom one has not stayed. What you can do is actually get something like this and just hold it down, right? So just let it dry. Thanks to super glue, because it's a super glue, it will dry very fast. Alright, so what else can I do? The next part that I can do is actually this. It's supposed to go in here, right? So for this, you guys can see that the part over here is actually disturbing this piece. So what you can do is actually you can just cut the bottom part off. Also depending how does it is glued in. So I just try to give it down first, or I can just leave it. It's fine, I think. I can just put it this way, right? So I just, alright, the key of doing this is basically don't use too much glue, because if you were to screw up, it's easier for you to remove the parts. Alright, so basically this is my tip, because I actually screw up on my wing, the main part, the other side of the wing just the other day, so kind of regret it. So now I'm learning from my mistakes. Yeah, it dries up way too fast. Just put in more glue. I think this middle part here, just put more glue slightly. I think should be fine. Okay, so this part is done. Next is this big part here. So basically what you should do is just a jigsaw puzzle. It's pretty straightforward, I guess. It's a no-brainer kind of thing. The hardest part is actually cutting it out. Once you've done your cutting, it's going to be just pasting on here. As you can see, it's always aligned perfectly because it's from the same piece. If you were to mix the right side with the left side, and then it's going to just go haywire, right? So as you guys can see, I actually lift the flaps off. Mainly it's because that I'm planning to do something with it. Right, so the last part is on. Done. Okay, so the wings is complete. Alright, so for the wing, the flaps here, I think this should be dry. Move it, yep, it's dry. Okay, so for the flaps here, I'm supposed to put it in here like this, right? See, it's gonna be a gap in the middle. If I were to put straight in like this, there's gonna be a gap at the bottom. So you guys can actually depends, what you guys want. You guys can just put it in like this, or actually one of my plans is actually I want to make it down slightly like this, slightly off. What do you guys think? Off is better or not? I think just put it in together should be better, I guess. Okay, so I just don't put off. So what I should do is, this part is taller, higher up, so I just put this small dab of glue here and small dab of glue here. Then next you should do is align it properly again. Don't rush this part, seriously. As per my experience, this is a very fun part but dangerous part. You guys could screw up immediately, right? Then the last part is like this. So as you can see, it's quite hard to know which part is supposed to be the top and bottom. So always make sure you put it on first and then test it fit first before you put the glue on. Also, once you put the glue on, it's almost impossible to remove it. And once you try to remove it, basically you have to redo the whole part again, right? So always remember to be careful. Oops. So yeah, careful it is, careful it is. Okay, done. So basically the wings are done. Right? All you need to do is repeat the process on the other side. Okay, this is the wings. Flip out the wing. Very careful. Yep, wings are out. And then do the same process again. Take this out in the line. Okay. Small dab of glue. Small dab of glue. And then align it up. finally it's done, right? So basically this is how it looks like once the part is complete. Right, so what do you guys think? Alright, please leave down in the comments below what you guys think about this tutorial, if you guys would use this for your builds. It's actually pretty easy and it does look like a professional job if you guys do this, so I highly recommend you guys practice and use this technique. Alright, thank you so much for watching. See you guys again next time. Goodbye guys.